Blackreach is one-of-a-kind location in Skyrim, an ancient and massive Dwemer city once housing the Deep Elves, now inhabited by a most diverse population, the largest number of which is taken by the Falmer and their servants. It is characterized by its unique flora and fungi, many intriguing areas such as a deep market and the debate hall that give us an idea of what life there was like whilst it was still home to the Dwemer, as well as quite a few mysterious residents. From a lonely giant roaming the landscape to a wisp mother, a creature on whose origins there are merely unconfirmed speculations. Nonetheless, the most enigmatic being we can come eyes to eyes with in Blackreach under special circumstances, and the one who is going to be our focus today, is no other than the dovah Vulthuryol. Drem Yol Lok, and welcome to my makeshift study here in the beautiful and bewildering Dwemer city of Fal'Zhardum Din, Blackest Kingdom reaches, best known to us as Blackreach. Once, this humble abode was occupied by the Aldmeri alchemist Sindarian, who has unfortunately met a tragic fate here, so far away from his home in Cyrodiil, in his quest to uncover the secrets of the Crimson Nirnroot, a specimen that only grows here. I do hope his spirit approves of us utilizing his study in our own pursuit of knowledge. Here today we are going to turn our attention to Vulthuryol, an ancient dovah who can be summoned by us if we choose to shout at the large, glowing orb in the middle of the complex named after it. How come a free-spirited and local, sky-loving dragon resides in a place so far away from the surface? Was he captured, or did he choose to remain in Blackreach voluntarily? Can he come and go as he pleases? Could there be a connection between the Dragon Elder Scroll and Vulthuryol? Could he have even had a cult following that settled in the cavern for some reason? Could he have been the Akakir, child of Akatosh, who taught the Dwemer the secrets of tonal architecture they prided themselves in? In short, what is Vulthuryol doing in Blackreach? Without further ado, let us focus on the inked pieces of parchment where I have documented my research. Before we delve into the theories available for us to explore, and once crafted by yours truly, let us first see what we can uncover about Vulthuryol himself, and then briefly go over the history of Blackreach, for this knowledge will be needed for some of the speculations we will explore. Let us begin by translating Vulthuryol's name in Tamrielic. Like all dragon names, it consists of three Rotmulage, words of power. Vul, which stands for dark. Thur, overlord or master, the synonym of the latter being in Dovazul, and Yol, fire. Thus, Vulthuryol would be Dark Fiery Overlord or Dark Overlord / Master of Fire. I would argue his name suits him. He is found in the darkness of Fal'Zhardum Din and displays mastery of the Yol Dog Shul, Fire Breath Shout. Could the Thur in his name also imply that he ruled over the Dwemer? One could discredit this claim as unlikely, for the Deep Elves were anti-theists. They acknowledged the existence of the gods, yet did not bow to neither the Aedra nor the Daedra. So why would they bend the knee to a lesser Aedric being such as a dovah? Regardless, we will explore this possibility later, as well as that of him ruling over more probable willing subjects. Vulthuryol's name will briefly come into play as we progress with our research too, but for now, let us see what else is known of him. In spite of being an ancient dovah, dragons who are very powerful among their kind, he does not display impressive combat prowess, as I touched on during my research regarding Paarthurnax's unusually battered appearance. For one, Vulthuryol does not use his wings to his advantage in Gra, battle, but rather crawls around, attacking his opponents with teeth and a thum. Even dove weaker than their ancient brethren only linger on the ground if they have been severely wounded. Furthermore, the damage he does when fighting is quite underwhelming compared to that of other dovah of his caliber. When sharing the discoveries of my investigation on Paarthurnax's aged look, I theorized that Vulthuryol's apparent decline in power could have possibly been caused by him denying his free-spirited nature by remaining underground for likely a millennia or even longer. I did also note, however, that it is ultimately unclear if he could leave Blackreach and return as he pleases, due to most likely having the become ethereal shout at his disposal, or by utilizing another of his arcane abilities, for which Dove are renowned. That is, if he was not captured and somehow contained within the city by the Dwemer. And he cannot be tamed by the band will shout, which is a resistance he holds over his otherwise much more formidable ancient Zemahe brothers. And finally, let us take a step outside of Tamriel and return to Earth for a moment, or rather visit Middle-earth. Vulthuryol is an Easter egg. He represents the dragon Smaug from The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, my personal favorite author. He can only be summoned underground in a dwarven city. Nu rigeru atazokan. Now back to Tamriel. That is all of the established information we can find about this enigmatic dovah. Now we shall briefly focus on the history of Blackreach. The exact year that Dwemer discovered the caverns is unknown, much like most of the events that took place during the Merethic era are not recorded with precise dates. It is there that their miners came across the unique blue crystal Aetherium and made an agreement to split the resource among the Dwemeri cities. The Deep Elves built lifts connecting Fal'Zhardum Din to at least four of them, Arkunthans, Mazulft, and Trautbathar, where three of four Aetherium shards can be found, and Bathar Zel. The Aetherium forge is located in the now ruins of Bathalft. It is speculated that there were many more passages that affixed old Dwemer cities in Skyrim to Blackreach. Nonetheless, if there was evidence of this, nature has long since destroyed most, if not all, physical proof, and no Dwemeri texts on the topic remain. The arrangement the Deep Elves made did not last, and they began to fight each other over Aetherium. This event is vaguely described in the book The Aetherium Wars, written by Taran Dreth. The end, when it came, was swift. In the span of 3 short years, the great dwarven cities of Skyrim, from Markarth to the Velothi Mountains, fell before the armies of the High King. Cities that had held fast against the Nords for over 100 years crumbled abruptly and without warning. In the decades preceding their fall, the dwarven cities of Skyrim had been decimated by internal disputes and infighting over a most surprising cause, Aetherium. Keeping all of this in mind, let us now return to the question we are going to offer possible answers to today, and namely, what is Vulthuryol doing in Blackreach? Let us begin. Mora now Minda. The first theory I have seen is rather straightforward. Vulthuryol chose Blackreach as his residence after the disappearance of the Dwemer, which happened in year 700 of the First Era, because Dove supposedly loved caves, if Blackreach can even be referred to as one given the nature of this location. The underground city is certainly spacious enough to house a dragon. As we mentioned before, he could have used the become ethereal shout to pass through any obstacles, which would prove to be challenging for his size, effortlessly, and or he may have used a different type of magic to do so, such as teleportation. This theory's biggest flaw is, even if dragons in earth and folklore and legends often reside in caves, this isn't true for the Dovah of Nirn. It is confirmed they enjoy staying at Strunmache, mountains, but there is absolutely no evidence to support their preference for underground locations. In fact, quite the opposite. Dove adore to roam the skies. All of the dragon layers we come across in Kaizal, Skyrim, are situated on summits or tall towers and fortresses that allow their inhabitants to bow, to fly as they please. In fact, the only two dovah we come across that stay underground and indoors respectively are Vulthuryol and the unnamed skeletal dragon in Labyrinthian, who is a special case where he is classified as undead, meaning he has been risen through necromancy as opposed to actually being alive, and indoors by his own free will. And there is Dwemer, who is bound to the soul cairn, and he expresses gratitude to us whenever we summon him in the realm of Mundus by exclaiming,
The free air of Fus at long last.
I highly doubt Vulthuryol chose Blackreach to be his home simply because he enjoyed the environment, especially considering how far below the ground it is. Being interested in the Dwemer, their knowledge, or something else within the cavern would be a more plausible speculation as to why he would willingly reside in Blackreach. And speaking of a possible connection between Vulthuryol and the Dwemer, as well as this something else he may have been intrigued by, here comes a personal theory of mine. Vulthuryol aided the Dwemer in mastering tonal architecture and or helped them acquire the Dragon Elder Scroll where they could have also learned it from. It is no secret that the Deep Elves were quite proficient in tonal architecture, the ability to manipulate sound to reshape reality. They were capable of altering vibrations with their own voices and amplified this power with magically created tools, such as tonal forks, for instance. The Dwemer demonstrated near mastery in the craft and used it in numerous areas of their lives, such as medicine and architecture. They could also utilize it to control one's mind or to hypnotize. Officially, it is stated that the Thu'um is comparable to tonal architecture in that the latter is also a magical manipulation of sound and can be used to alter reality, and also as a weapon, as we are well aware. Nonetheless, I believe Dovah Zul, the dragon voice, to not only be comparable to tonal architecture, but that it is the best example of entirely natural tonal architecture. There are no more renowned masters of vibration and sound than Dove. A piece of evidence which I believe to weigh quite heavily is hidden within the most enigmatic Dwemer ruin in all of Skyrim, and namely Kahvozein. Let us ignore the unnatural change in directions as soon as we enter it, facing west before we step inside, and then suddenly facing south if our back is to the door, and the unsolved mystery behind the bones lying about, and instead focus on the strange glowing orb that begins to circle us when we enter a small area that soon becomes an enclosure. It emits high-pitched sounds as it goes around us, almost as if scanning us for something, to determine if we will live or meet the same fate as the unlucky bandits lying lifeless at our feet. Listen and observe. Once it finishes scanning us, the ground beneath us opens and we fall freely into an abyss, whose surrounding stones are littered with bones and skeletons of unknown origin, and we land in a cave lake. Perhaps there was meant to be an elevator or an airship to escort the Dwemer from Kahvozein to whatever construction was to be underneath. It makes sense because Kahvozein translates to Music City, which not only supports the speculation that it was meant to be much bigger in size and was never finished, but also that the magical ball of light is likely connected to tonal architecture. But I digress. The most popular theory floating about regarding this strange orb is that it was meant to determine whether or not the one whom it circles is proficient in tonal architecture, a Dwemer. Being dragonborn, an individual naturally gifted with the ability to understand dovah, the very essence of it, and use the thum, we have an inborn ability of tonal architecture, which is why we are not swiftly killed like the unfortunate bandits who attempted to proceed through the small ruin. The orb likely determined we are a deep elf and are allowed to continue to what was probably meant to be an underground city, similar to Blackreach, unscathed. But as mentioned before, the project was never finished as we are met with a cave as opposed to Dwemer architecture. Kahvozein is a subject that requires further investigation, which has been offered by several researchers of Tazokan, Tamriel. So let us return to the theory that Vulthuryol possibly taught the Dwemer the secrets of tonal architecture and/or provided them with the Dragon Elder Scroll. A question regarding the latter statement would be, how did Vulthuryol get a hold of an Elder Scroll? Very little is known of Kelle, Elder Scrolls, and their exact origins, but many believe them to be Aedric artifacts. This particular scroll is very likely such, given it is strongly connected to Dove. As children of Akatosh, chief of the Aedra, perhaps they have easier access to Kelle. No Regir, let us return to Vulthuryol possibly aiding the Dwemer in mastering tonal architecture or supplying them with an Elder Scroll. If this is the case, I highly doubt he chose to help them out of generosity or out of the kindness of his heart. He must have been promised something in return by the Deep Elves. The simplest and most straightforward he could have gotten from them is Minda, knowledge, which this particular race of Mer has, or rather had, an abundance of. Just as Durnevir made an arrangement with the ideal masters in order to become an unmatched master of Alok Dilon, necromancy, which did not end very well for him, what was to stop Vulthuryol from doing something similar with the Dwemer? Perhaps his agreement with the Deep Elves was to remain in Blackreach and observe the construction of the city, to uncover more about their sturdy metalwork and their technology, or even Aetherium. Despite him ruling over them being unlikely, due to his status of an Kurdo an Eira, a son of an Aedra, could they have bowed down to him due to the incredible knowledge he offered them? This race of Mer values Minda and logic above all, and I would argue Dove and especially ancient Dovah have plenty of the former. If the Deep Elves would choose to be led by someone, it would likely be by one who is not only powerful but also very erudite, and this would explain the Thur in his name if we choose not to connect it to his mastery of Yol, of fire. I find this highly unlikely, but it is a technical possibility. Furthermore, Vulthuryol could have arrived in Skyrim and in Blackreach respectively together with the Dwemer. It would not be the first time a dovah allied himself with mortals in order to survive or simply because it benefited him. Navala flew beside Tiber Septim as the future Ninth Divine conquered all of Tamriel, and Parthurnak sated Jor, mortals, in overthrowing the at the time tyrannical dragon cult, which he did actually do due to pity and with a little push from Kain. Dovah one-of-a-kind individuals with their unique characters, goals, and dreams. Perhaps Vulthuryol's aligned with the Deep Elves, and thus he chose to remain with them, even underground, which goes against his free-spirited nature. Something that may also tie into this theory is the giant orb in the middle of the complex, normally thought to be an artificial sun by most researchers. What if it is actually a tool for tonal architecture used to summon Vulthuryol by the Dwemer in order to consult him or inform him of something? It is interesting to note that it only emits a loud clank sound once when the dovah is called upon and never again, no matter how many times we shout at it.
Fus, Roda! Fus, Roda! Fus, Roda!
But I digress. The biggest flaw of this speculation is the question as to why Vulthuryol did not simply leave Blackreach as soon as the Dwemer disappeared, if he was there for the purpose of enriching his knowledge and or ruling over them in return of teaching them secrets of tonal architecture and or providing them with the Dragon Elder Scroll that holds the key to learning it. The Dwemer vanished from the face of Tamriel before the Dragon War broke out, so it is not as if Vulthuryol chose to remain in Blackreach for his own safety. Besides, in spite of their imposing size and presence, dovah can actually be quite stealthy if they so desire. Thus, if he did not wish to participate in the Dragon War, he could have still managed to abandon the Dwemer city and fly somewhere far away from these turbulent events. Mirmulnir survived, and from what we know, he did not remain confined anywhere. Furthermore, if his power has indeed waned, due to him not leaving the cavern for a long while, why would he choose to stay, aside from perhaps seeking more information on what interested him in the Dwemer in the first place? Maybe something about Blackreach itself, such as the Aetherium deposits. As mentioned before, Aetherium is a unique blue crystal with strong magical properties, which was uncovered in Fal'Zhardum Din, and was so valuable that it caused a decades-old war between the Dwemer. I cannot help but wonder if its name has a connection to the realm of Aetherius, even if it originated there. As a lesser Aedra, Vulthuryol could have some form of connection and deeper understanding of the unique crystal, and given Dove's mastery of the arcane arts, maybe he could even magically utilize it in some way. I did not separate this short speculation because there is nothing I can offer in support of it. In any case, here is the next speculation, which is that of a braan bovitaan, fellow adventurer, and goes as follows. Vulthuryol was not in Blackreach voluntarily, but rather he was captured and slain there, and his soul was trapped within the golden orb and used to light and warm the city. It was freed by our Fusroda shout, and found the body it was once attached to buried somewhere in Blackreach, reconnecting to it and awakening the dovah. This insightful individual supports his or her theory through the observation that the glow the object emits shares the same color as that of a dovah seal, a dragon's soul, as we absorb it after slaying one of those formidable beings. Here I shall expand on it. Through their advanced technology and magics, the Dwemer had access to the knowledge Vulthuryol's seal carried within itself, using it for various aught, among which learning more of tonal architecture, and perhaps even how to uncover the Dragon Elder Scroll, where they could have also gained information about this craft from. Here we return to Kahvozein and the other strange orb we come across. Upon closer inspection, the one in the city of Blackreach strongly resembles the smaller ball of energy, both in color and shape, with the one in the Music City being lighter in hue. If we treat the claim that the Kahvozein orb's purpose is to indeed scan those who choose to proceed below the small ruin for the ability to use tonal architecture as plausible, and given our previous discussion on how dove are born with this ability due to the power of their zul, their voice, it becomes a very solid evidence for this speculation. Perhaps it is even a fragment of Vulthuryol's soul, which was reshaped and used for this very purpose. The fellow adventurer also believes that the large glowing body in Blackreach is a device to keep multiple dragon souls, not only Vulthuryol's. If we accept this as true and assume that the smaller orb in Kahvozein is indeed a device used to determine whether or not one is proficient in tonal architecture, perhaps we can treat it as another full or a piece of the soul of a different dovah. Furthermore, if Vulthuryol's seal was indeed trapped within the orb and freed by our shout, it would explain why he is weaker than he should be, considering his status as an ancient dragon. He was just brought back Wallace to life, and not by Alduin's Slen Ti Dvo, Flesh Time Undo shout, but by the Dovah Keen on accident. Another small detail that may mean nothing. The decorations surrounding the orb could be interpreted as abstract metalwork meant to resemble flying dragons. I would personally interpret them as butterflies or flowers if we have to assign a shape to them. Nonetheless, with more imagination, they could be meant to depict dovah. There are loose ends to this theory, however. If it was Vulthuryol's soul that was keeping the orb alight, how come it continues to glow in the exact same manner after we supposedly push it out and into his body? Even if there are other dragon souls within the large object, surely its light would dim once one of them leaves it, if only slightly. Also, as we shout at the orb, we do not see any essence abandon it to attach itself back to a physical body. Furthermore, there is no burial mound or dragon bones lying anywhere in Blackreach. If Vulthuryol was buried in nearby vicinity, which I believe to be the only way his soul could have found its shell so quickly, surely we would have come across kethe, bones of a dovah lying about, or a large grave. And I believe it would be logical for someone who has been trapped in a place for gods know how long and is suddenly freed to immediately seek a way out, as opposed to fly over to the south entrance near the very object that kept his soul confined for an unspecified amount of time and lounge there casually. That is all to be said about this, despite all its loose ends, most fascinating speculation. Let us now discuss the final one, which is another personal of mine and is mainly a fruit of my imagination with rather insignificant evidence to back it up, but still technically possible. Vulthuryol and his worshippers moved to Blackreach to study this blue crystal that caused so much trouble for the Dwemer, and/or because of the Dragon Elder Scroll kept safe in the Tower of Mazak, which would also explain the Thug in his name. During the time of the dragon cult, Dove were worshipped as gods, with separate dovah often having personal priests and even a group of cultists. As we are well aware, not much information of the time during which dragons and their sonakke, priests, ruled remains. Nonetheless, the previously stated information does have surviving evidence. One I can give as an example is the rather mysterious weapon Kahvozein's Fang, a dragon priest dagger that was wielded by cultists of the eponymous dovah Kahvozein and is legendary in Skyrim. I would love to focus on this blade in particular in a future research, which will likely be different in nature and shorter than usual due to lack of information, but for now let us return to Vulthuryol and his alleged cultists. We may assume that when they arrived in Blackreach, it is no longer inhabited and used as a neutral meeting ground/capital by the Dwemer. And given that the Dwemer disappeared in year 700 of the First, or Merithic era, and the Dragon War broke out near the end of the late Merithic era, they could have settled in Blackreach after the race vanished from the face of Tamriel. Excitingly enough, there is actually evidence of Nordic/ancient Admoran presence in Blackreach, defined by this lone stone pillar, the carvings on which are very clearly not of Dwemeri origin, but of Nordic one. We see this architecture and stone art in every single ancient Nordic ruin we explore in Skyrim, including those serving as tombs of dragon priests. This is the only sign of non-Dwemeri architecture in the entirety of Blackreach, and its location is very difficult, if not impossible to explain, but given the current theory we are exploring, we could say that it was meant to be a part of a much larger temple that Vulthuryol's cult was planning on building. Given there are Falmer in Blackreach during the Fourth Era, perhaps the Solnakke and their dovah either coexisted with them peacefully at the time, or even used their slave labor to mine Aetherium. Of course, the now twisted snow elves we come across during our story as dovah Kinne could have moved to Blackreach much later, after finding it through underground tunnels and lifts connecting various Dwemer cities to it. But I digress. The reasons Vulthuryol and his worshippers would be interested in Aetherium could be several. For one, it possesses natural magical properties, and given doves and by extension their priests' mastery of the arcane arts, they could have certainly found many uses for it, even if they had no access to the Aetherium forge to craft weapons, armor, and accessories from the blue crystal. Or perhaps they could utilize the forge if they knew of its location and could reach it. The other possibility is that the dovah and his cultists sensed the presence of the Dragon Elder Scroll within the Tower of Mazak and moved to the underground city to recover it. Deeming its placement secretive and safe enough, they decided to remain there and study it, using the Dwemer's devices to extract knowledge from it, without suffering any of the side effects of reading an Elder Scroll unprepared or cast their advanced magics to do so. The other possibility concerning this artifact is that they brought it there for the same reasons, safekeeping and learning from it. Vulthuryol settles at the south entrance of the orb complex at the beginning of the pathway leading to the Tower of Mazak. He doesn't appear to be guarding it, for during the 4th era we can recover the Kel, Elder Scroll, without ever running into this enigmatic dovah. Furthermore, nothing in this speculation suggests that Vulthuryol was bound to Blackreach. He would come and go as he pleases. Unfortunately, here come the numerous loose ends to this theory. Firstly, aside from the inexplicable Nordic pillar, there is no further evidence of the dragon cult's presence in Blackreach. There is no priest, no draugr, no written sources, and no Atmoran temples or stone carvings. Furthermore, if Vulthuryol's worshippers resided there for a time, it would make sense that he would have a lair nearby, not necessarily within the city of Blackreach, but out in the open, beneath the loch, the sky, in close vicinity to the cavern. And while there are dragon lairs that are technically close to Blackreach, they are occupied by other dragons and not Vulthuryol. I have nothing more to add to this speculation except that I am honestly surprised there could be some credibility to it, aside from my imagination, in the face or rather the stones of the Nordic pillar. Nonetheless, I feel there are so many question marks accompanying it and I cannot transform them into full stops. And on that unclear note, today's research comes to an end. Lover of caves, teacher of tonal architecture, an unfortunate victim of the Dwemer, or a dovah with his very own cult whose members were interested in Aetherium and or the Dragon Elder Scroll, Vulthuryol's presence in Blackreach is a mystery. Whichever of these claims is true, if any at all, is ultimately left to our interpretation. So, Difadonne, what do you believe to be the most plausible explanation? I personally quite like the theory that he taught the Dwemer tonal architecture. I may be a little biased for I crafted this one myself, but it was so enjoyable to make the connections between Kahvozein, Blackreach and Vulthuryol. In any case, if you have your own personal speculation to share, please do not hesitate to do so. I always adore to exchange knowledge and thoughts with you, Difadonne. Arkun Slat Kogan, thank you all so much for your continued overwhelming and humbling support. I am still having trouble believing our community of scholars and researchers has grown so much in such a short amount of time. I can say nothing except the most heartfelt thank you. I do hope you enjoyed and I look forward to having you here next time, where we research, investigate something new and in a different manner, or simply relax at any place in Tamriel. But until then, Lok Tu. Kosmul Akas. Be strong and healthy, Difadonne.